Senator Whitehouse.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Gentlemen, thank you both for being here. My coastal risk management concern is exemplified in the President's fiscal year 2026 budget, which has $1.56 billion for the core construction account, with only $2 million recommended for coastal storm risk management. I've talked about a 20-to-1 ratio. I've talked about a 100-to-1 ratio. This is an 80-to-1 ratio. And if you drill down on that one, on the $2 million, you find that it actually won't even fund a single project. It's for employee compensation claims to the Department of Labor. So that, to me, nets out to 0 coastal storm risk management projects in the fiscal year 2026 budget. What are we going to do about this?
Senator Whitehouse, you and I have discussed this previously on several occasions, and it's something that I've looked into in my 6.5 weeks here on the job. You and I should compare numbers. The numbers I have for FY26 President's budget are different than yours, and I just want to make sure that we're speaking from the same facts. What I will say about the overall ratio that you...
Just
go ahead, sir.
Give me the name of the person on your team my team should talk to go through the numbers before we have to have this conversation.
Absolutely. Your team works very closely with Stacey Brown.
Stacey Brown it is. Go ahead.
Senator Whitehouse, one of the things that I wanted to point out to you in looking through these numbers is that the vast majority of construction and investigations funding goes towards rehabilitating our dams. These are dams that were built over the decades that protect American cities from flood risk. They hold water back from flooding those cities. A large portion of the President's budget request is related to maintaining and rehabilitating those dams that are of a critical safety level. When you look at the new projects that are not dam-related in investigations and construction, the ratio that you're discussing is more like 1.7 to 1 inland to coastal. And so I just want to point out that when we're taking action to rehabilitate infrastructure that is in desperate need of it based on the safety implications, the President's budget has prioritized those activities, and it does skew the numbers, but I want to make sure that you understand those aren't new dams. Those are dams that are in our inventory and have been for, in many cases, decades.
Yeah, and were it not for this discrepancy, there'd probably be a lot of coastal projects that would have been in your inventory for decades, but because they were overlooked, they're not in your inventory for decades. So it's a continuing problem, and I look forward to working with you to find a sensible solution.
Thank you, sir.
You've indicated that you are pausing work on feasibility studies for non-structural solutions. That is Army Corps speak for what? Non-structural.
Senator, thank you for asking the question. And then I think in the case that you're discussing, non-structural refers to an activity that is not in keeping with the Corps' long tradition of building infrastructure that protects entire communities, but rather going home by home and in many cases flood-proof.
Elevating homes would be a perfect example of that.
Correct. And I would say at scale is a key part of this conversation, because we're not talking about a project where, we provide some piece of flood control infrastructure and then for the few homes that are still in harm's way, we elevate them. We're talking about going into entire regions and using the United States Army Corps of Engineers to go and home by home elevate. And I think, as I discussed with you yesterday, I think this, based on the initial results of some of this work at scale, we need to have a conversation about whether this is how you would like for the United States Army Corps of Engineers to dedicate its efforts.
Well, first of all, let me say that I'm eager for that discussion, and I think there are other interests that can be brought to bear having to do with the National Flood Insurance Program. There's a lot of messy work that has not been done about protecting our coasts, and it's not clear that you coming in and doing all of it is the best solution. But neither is it the best solution to have you just walk away. And I have the example here of Louisiana's large-scale non-structural project of $600 million to raise 3,462 homes across a 4,700 square mile study area, which is a pretty big project, and $600 million is pretty serious money even for the Army Corps. But if you put that next to the Ike Dike in Texas, the budget for that is about closing on $60 billion. So it's 100 times more expensive to do the Ike Dike project. You could do 100 of those Louisiana projects, and I think in that context, it's important that we come to a sensible, common sense solution and not one that just says, okay, non-structural is all done here.
Senator, I agree with you, and I want to make very clear, General Graham's team's directive to take a harder look at the non-structural program has not slowed work on the 2 pilot projects in Louisiana and New York, the one that you referenced. However, it has, I would just say that the early results that I've been made aware of that program would cause the cost to escalate far beyond the $600 million amount that you referenced. And quite frankly, I believe if we didn't take a second look at this, we would be being called before this committee for waste, not inefficiently using taxpayer dollars. And so I think your willingness to work with us to get this right, we don't want to walk away from non-structural solutions, and we'll always analyze them as alternatives. The question is whether the United States Army Corps of Engineers is the appropriate entity to implement them.
I think I can safely say that both the chair and I would like to work with you to get to a sensible solution that is not no more non-structural. Thank you.